Why does a poem written over 150 years ago by a woman who barely left her house still show up in greeting cards, graduation speeches, and hospital waiting rooms? Why do people who've never read poetry know these lines by heart? Hello, poetry family. Welcome to the Reaction Room on the Poetry Show with your girl, Amy Fortran. We are breaking down Emily Dickinson's Hope is the Thing with Feathers today. This is a metaphor that has sustained millions through war, loss, and uncertainty. And by the end, you will understand why these 12 lines might be the most important poem you'll ever read. Now let's listen to the poem and its analysis.
Hope is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chilliest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asks the crumb of me. 12 lines, written around 1861, while America descended into the Civil War, while families were torn apart, while Emily Dickinson herself withdrew further into isolation in her father's house in Amherst, Massachusetts. Writing in secret on scraps of paper she hid in her desk drawer. She never titled this poem. She never titled any of her poems. And she never knew these words would comfort millions. But here's what makes this metaphor brilliant and why it still works 150 years later. Dickinson doesn't say hope is like a bird. She says hope is a bird. No comparison, different transformation. And notice the specific details she chooses. The bird doesn't sing words. It sings wordless tune. It perches in the soul, not the heart or mind. And it never stops at all. This is the first insight. Hope doesn't need language. It doesn't need justification. You can't logic your way into hope or out of it. It just exists, humming, persistent. Think about the last time you felt genuine hope about something. Could you fully explain why you felt hopeful? Probably not. You might have had reasons, sure, but the feeling itself, that warm, persistent sense that things might be okay, that came from the reasons. That's what Dickinson understood. Hope is preverbal. It's the feeling that comes before the explanation. And that matters because when you're in crisis, when you're in the storm, you don't always have reasons. But the bird keeps singing anyway. Now, the second stanza. This is where Dickinson gets radical. And sweetest in the gale is heard. Not despite the storm, in the storm. Hope doesn't exist in the absence of trouble. It exists because of trouble. Here's the historical context that matters. 1861. The Battle of Bull Run had just happened. Young men, boys really, were dying by the thousands in fields far from home. Families were receiving telegrams. Brothers were fighting brothers. Dickinson's own brother, Austin, was of military age. The entire nation was in a gale that would kill over 600,000 people before it ended. And Dickinson says the bird sings sweetest in that moment. Why? Because that's when you need it the most. That's when you notice it. This is Dickinson's insight. Hope isn't optimism. Optimism requires evidence. Optimism says, I think things will work out because of X, Y, and Z. Hope is what remains when evidence runs out. Hope is what sings when the storm is so severe that singing seems absurd. And here's the practical guidance in this. When you're in the storm, and you will be in storms, we all are, don't wait to feel hopeful to take the next step. The hope is in the taking of the step. The bird doesn't sing and then you move forward. The bird sings while you move forward. You don't need to feel hope to act on hope. You just need to take the next small action. Make the phone call. Send the application. Have the conversation. Get out of bed. And the bird sings in the doing of it. That's why Dickinson says, it kept so many warm. Not make them feel good. Not convince them everything would be fine. Kept them warm. Kept them alive. Kept them going. The final stanza is where Dickinson delivers her most surprising twist. Never ask a crumb of me. Hope costs nothing. It demands nothing. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to deserve it. You don't have to be good enough for it. So here's the second piece of practical guidance. If you're thinking, I don't deserve hope. I've failed too many times. I've let people down. I've had too many mistakes. Dickinson is telling you that hope doesn't care. It's not a reward for good behavior. It's not a prize you win. It's not something you have to qualify for. It's a bird. And birds don't check your credentials before they land in your tree. The bird perches in your soul. All souls, including yours, especially yours. So why has this poem endured for 150 years? Why does it appear in hospital rooms, prison cells, refugee camps, and funeral programs? Why do people tattoo these lines on their bodies, cross-stitch them on pillows, recite them at weddings and memorials? Because Dickinson understood something we keep forgetting. Hope isn't naive. It's not ignoring reality. It's not toxic positivity telling you to just think positive while your life falls apart. Real hope acknowledges the storm. Dickinson says, Saul must be the storm that could silence this bird. She admits to chilliest lands and strangest seas. She doesn't pretend life isn't brutal. She doesn't sugarcoat the gale. But she also says, even here, even now, even in extremity, There's this thing with feathers, singing without words, asking nothing, keeping us warm. Today we face different storms than Dickinson did. Personal crises that feel insurmountable. Illness, loss, loneliness, failure, grief that sits on your chest and won't move. And people keep coming back to these 12 lines, not because they offer answers, but because they offer something better than answers. They offer presence. The bird doesn't tell you how the storm ends. It doesn't promise you'll be okay. It doesn't give you a timeline or a plan or a guarantee. It keeps singing through it. You don't need evidence to hope. You don't need permission to hope. You don't need worthiness to hope. You don't need certainty to hope. You just need to notice the bird that's already there. And here's the final piece of practical guidance. Hope is not something you have or don't have. It's something you notice or don't notice. The bird is always perching, always singing. The question is, are you paying attention? When everything feels dark, when the storm is howling, when you can't see a way forward, that's when you need to listen for the tune without words. It's there. It's faint, maybe. It's quiet, but it's there. It's the impulse that makes you get up one more morning. The instinct that makes you reach out to a friend. The whisper that says, try again. When every rational part of you says, give up. That's the bird. That's hope. And it never stops at all. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings a tune without the words and never stops at all.
Welcome back. Emily Dickinson died in 1886 at the age of 55, having published only a handful of poems in her lifetime. Most of her nearly 1,800 poems were discovered after her death, sewn into little booklets and hidden in a drawer. She never knew that these 12 lines would comfort millions, that they'd be read at bedsides and memorized by people who had never heard her name, that they'd survive wars and pandemics and personal catastrophes she couldn't have imagined. But maybe that's fitting, because hope doesn't need recognition either. It doesn't need credits. It doesn't need to be famous or understood or even acknowledged. It just needs to be noticed. So notice it. The bed is there. It's been there all along, perching in your soul, singing in the storm, asking nothing, keeping you warm. And when you notice it, so notice it. The bed is there. It's been there all along, perching in your soul, singing in the storm, asking nothing, keeping you warm. And when you notice it, when you hear that tune without words, that's when you realize Dickinson was right. It never stops at all. Anyway, this brings us to the end of our reaction video today. And if you loved what you just listened to and you know that these words resonate so much with you, I would like you to like this video. Give this video a thumbs up. And if you've been watching us for a very long time right now and you have not subscribed, I don't know what you're waiting for. Click on that subscribe button and Click on the notification bell so that whenever we bring words like this, analysis like this that will be able to suit you, you will be the first to get notified. Make sure you also share this video with your friends, because sharing this video makes us grow and we will so much appreciate that. Now we have something that will really interest you. We have started a Christmas poetry contest. It actually started today, November 1. So I would want you to follow us on our social media platforms that are displayed on the screen for more details in respect to that contest. Until we'll meet again on our next video. It's your girl, Amy Fortran. Bye for now.